All right. Hi, everybody. It's Mark Redmond from Mandorla Music, and I'm really happy to see you and really excited to tell you about what's coming. We just were in the studio on Sunday recording the third of these virtual performances through Mandorla for the winter time until we can be back together in person. It was great to be back at Q Division, and I have to shout out Somerville Arts Council for their help in making this happen, as well as the individual donors that have supported these home performances. And I'm so psyched to be here this afternoon with Carla Kihlstedt, who on my screen is at the bottom of the screen. I don't know how it looks for you. And Magdalena Obrego, who are both here. Carla is played an amazing set of music that you'll all get to see on Saturday. And Magdalena is responsible for that. She introduced Carla and I through some of their affiliation together. So howdy, nice to see you both again.
Good to see you, Mark.
Hi.
Magdalena, tell us about Input Output coming back and about Input Output at all. Some people who are seeing this won't know about your beautiful organization. So tell us what's up.
Thanks, Mark. And thank you again for having me as a part of this series specifically and inviting Input Output to co-present this show featuring Carla's music. So Input Output is a platform that I founded back in 2018, and it is dedicated to supporting women and non-binary artists working in creative music communities in the United States, anything from improvised music to experimental music. And everything in between. We took some time off because of the pandemic. Things were going super well. We had a magazine, a podcast, we were hosting events. And as you both know, the arts industry came to a screeching halt. And now that we've had a moment to sort of recover and re-strategize about the way that we fit into the arts industry as it looks now, we're super, super excited to be kicking off our 2021 programming with this show. So thank you again, Carla, for being willing. I'm so glad we could make it happen.
Me too. I'm super, super honored. Thank you. I'm a big fan of Input Output. Like I said, I listened to some of the podcasts on my way to Boston the other day, 2 days ago, and they're just lovely and like casual but super intimate and just the kind of conversation you wish you could be a fly on the wall for. And now we get to be a fly on the wall for them.
Yeah.
No, I super appreciate that. I'm psyched that we'll be having season 2 of the podcast out later this year, so look out for that. And in the meantime, we've got some exciting programming coming up, of course, starting things off with this collaboration with Mandorla Music. And we also have a workshop coming up on the horizon that deals with the topic of gender identity and the way that it interacts with the music industry and press. So lots of exciting things on the horizon.
How can folks find out more about that, Magdalena?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best place to find us is on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at Input Output Mag. You can also join our newsletter from there, and we can keep you up to date on all of these events that we have cooking.
So definitely check that out and stay on top of what's coming. It sounds like there's going to be some great stuff. And I will also put in a plug for the season 1 of the podcast. It was such a great listen. I listened to probably not every, but most of the episodes, and really great listen, every one of them. Some artists I was familiar with, some totally new to me, and you've got a great way of talking to people. So really enjoyable. And I'm so appreciative of you connecting us with Carla. Carla, it was so great to have you at Q Division on Sunday. Made the big trek up from the seaside down in Woods Hole.
I think it's only the second or third time I've crossed the bridge in a year.
Yeah, I believe it. Wow.
How's that for terrifying? I used to do it like once a week.
Isn't it amazing how like going just to a different town feels like a huge journey these days? It's funny how that has come to be. So I don't think Magdalena or I knew that would be your first solo performance in what sounds like many years. We actually
you might not have asked me to do it if you had known. Yeah, so much of what I do these days is collaborative, and
Yeah.
As a songwriter, I'm working with Matthias Bossi, my husband, and Jeremy Flower and John Evans and Rabbit Rabbit Radio. And as a composer, I'm working, always writing kind of for and with other people. And I just haven't made the space for solo material or solo practice in that kind of way in a really long time. And in fact, when Magdalena, you sent me that email, my first instinct was like, no way, no, not in that space. And I happened to have a conversation with my sister, who I'm very close with, who is an actress and an artist, and I mentioned it offhandedly. She said, Carla, hang up the phone right now, go back to your computer, and send them an email and tell them you'll do it. And so we kind of owe this to my sister, that I actually did it. And then of course the fun was like, there's nothing like a deadline to like be like, okay, well, now what do I want to do? So that was actually really a fun process to build a little scaffold to get me from there to here.
So what folks will hear when we premiere the finished video on Saturday is a mixture of older compositions of Carla's. I'm guessing compositions that were played in band settings before. So here it's just violin or viola and voice. And then a bunch of really intriguing sketches, which I'm hoping you'll tell us a little bit more about. What's this project you've got going?
Sure. I mean, I think I'm such, by nature, I'm such a collaborator that for me, like a solo project, like the practice of a solo project is like engaging my imagination. So as I play solo, I'm hearing all kinds of other sounds that aren't there. I'm hearing all kinds of collaborators and instruments and stuff. So yeah, I'll play, I think I play three, one recent song, to, should I ask my family to be quiet?
It's all good. This is real
Okay,
life.
is it all good?
This is real life.
Here we are. There's a screaming
Yeah.
7-year-old over there. Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, I can give them the old like elbow to the wall if you want. But so a lot of my work recently has been kind of environmentally based. I'm kind of, as I get older and I won't say wiser, because I'm not sure that that's happening, but I'm kind of a lot more of my work and my life is kind of is investigating in a deeper way, like how we live on the earth we live on, and how we can kind of understand that in a deeper way than our structures are asked to. And I kind of, in a way, this, as dark as the book I chose to work with is, to me, it's actually, compared to that work, it seems very lighthearted to me.
Yeah.
Even though it's totally about death.
Yeah.
So I and I can't even remember why I reached for this book. What reminded me of it in that moment, but I was really looking for, I love writing miniatures. I find them really liberating. I make my students write miniatures because it's just a way of like expanding your vocabulary and kind of growing your scope of like what you can do with your limited resources, because you have to answer that question over and over and over again. So that's just like a format I really love. The first songs I ever wrote were all tiny, and that's partly because I didn't quite know what I was doing yet, and partly because I didn't know that much. I didn't have that many developmental tools in terms of musical development, but partly also because it was like, well, let's not answer this one way, let's answer this 40 ways.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a return to that for me, and I chose this book, The Gashley Crumb Tinies, which is a pretty iconic book. A lot of people will be familiar with it. And I'm working on a piece called 26 Little Deaths. And the format of this book is an alphabet book. And so on every page, a kid with a different name, starting with A is for Amy and B is for Basil, dies in a really unseemly way. Now they're like the most charming. I mean, they're so charming. And the fact is, like, it's a brilliant book. This is Ida. And Ida, I is for Ida, who drowned in a lake. And then, of course, I have to give you the next one because it rhymes. It's a rhyming. Every 2 pages, it's a rhyme scheme thing. J is for James, who took lie by mistake. And the kids are so charming, and the names are so evocative that the more time I spend with this, the more I fall in love with these crazy little characters who only lived long enough to tell you how they died. And what's brilliant about this book is that he kind of invites the reader to be the villain, because a lot of them he doesn't actually show you the terribleness that's happening. Like poor Ernest. Ernest choked on a peach, but you just see Ernest there at the table, and so you, the reader, get to imagine or not imagine what actually happens, and a lot of them are created like that. And so I know it seems very dark, and especially as a mother and of two children whom I love very dearly, my kids found out that I'm doing this. They're like, "Mom, are you okay?" Like, yes, this is very therapeutic for me. Um,
So one of the things you said about it when we were taping on Sunday, the other songs you brought too, a couple of them were sort of tributes to friends you've lost, and you commented addressing the audience, the audience who has yet to
to
assemble.
appear.
But well, gosh, I hope I'm not scaring you. This all seems rather dark. But you said a thing that I was hoping you might speak to a little bit more, which is that for you as an artist, engaging darkness and light together and holding both is a way to connect with joy. Did I hear you
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's true on a few different levels. One is just the joy of making something, and the
Mm,
joy of making something, whatever it is um, something I will never take for granted.
mm,
Um, and and also, of course, like the older I get, the more people I know and love who are no longer with us.
mm,
And I know this last year has been particularly brutal for a lot of people. And it seems like the practice of seeing light and dark in the same frame is a deeply um, therapeutic and important practice.
mm.
And in a way, I think that's maybe why I was drawn to this book,
Mhm,
is because the book is made with such love. I
mhm.
mean, I don't know if you, his drawing has so much detail in it.
So
And like
meticulous, yeah.
it's so meticulous. It's
Mm,
here. This is the first one I'll show you. I'm not sure if my camera is good enough to really show you,
mm.
but the how much just thought and
The shadow
like
under her.
there's little that just the detail, and you can see the joy with which he drew these is really palpable, and
Mm,
like so much nuance, and all the cross hatching and the time it took for him to draw these little instant things. And so I think in some way I was drawn to this book because it is exactly a mesh between like super dark subject matter, but done with charm and
mm,
humor
mm,
and a very lighthearted format. I mean, there is no more lighthearted format than the kids rhyming alphabet book,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
And so he takes that format and kind of turns it on its head in a way. And it really is a kid's book.
mm,
It's not like one of those books that's like for adults, but and like my 7-year-old son absolutely adores it. And when I spoke to the guy at the there's a lovely uh the director of the Gory House here in on the Cape, when I spoke with him and reached out to him to get some clearance that it was okay that we were doing this, he kind of reiterated, yeah, this really is a kid's book, and your
mm,
son is just at the perfect age to to
mm,
um to enjoy it.
mm,
So I think sometimes we imagine that kids are all butterflies and rainbows in their heads, but I think actually kids are maybe in some ways magnetically drawn and engaging with and curious about darkness and death,
mm,
in a way that we then kind of we don't have a great we don't have a great set of traditions and ceremonies to in this our white Western European culture for really. And I say we, when I say we, that's like
mm.
there's obviously many people around me with many different kinds of
Right.
traditions, but
Mm,
I certainly didn't
mhm,
grow up like you went to a funeral, period. But
mhm,
that was weird and awkward, and
mhm, mm,
so and um, I don't know.
mm,
I feel like the cyclical nature of cycles of life and death
mm.
they're here whether we want to deal with them or not.
Yeah. Well, and
So
they've been continually exposed in all kinds of ways over this last year, and it's a real gift, I think, to. I mean, this is what art is for. I think is for helping us find ways to hold all of it, to keep the dark and the light in the frame, and you certainly, as folks will see on Saturday, you certainly are holding both in the way that you perform with such warmth um, and a real gravity too. And I think people will feel and hear and see all of that. So I know that you've got um, kids there who are clamoring at your door and other things to do and have already spent a lot of your day on Zoom. So I don't want to prolong that too much, but just tell us what's ahead for you. What, like, as things start to lift and open, you haven't crossed the bridge too often, but where's your musical life going to take you in the coming year?
well, actually, it's kind of going to be a big year for me in some way. I'm turning 50 in November, which right? um, and I certainly didn't plan for any, you know, big celebration of that. But my mother-in-law actually pointed out, she's like, wait a minute, 50 is turning out to be the big year in which all kinds of things are happening
Mm,
for you. And she's kind of right. A few different things. One is I'm finally releasing and launching a project that I've worked on for many years called Necessary Monsters. That's a
mm,
collaboration with the poet. Actually, it's a book. It's a song cycle inspired by a book by Borges, who
wow.
I think I mentioned in the concert as well.
Mm,
Um, and it's a series of 9 songs based on 9 imaginary beings. And so I'm doing that in the fall, COVID willing.
mm-hmm.
It's supposed to happen in October. So we shall we shall see.
Mm-hmm.
I think by October things will be
Keep them
happening.
crossed. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and I'm launching a big choral project, which I'm super excited about for treble chorus, that I'm
Mm,
hoping takes over the next 15 years of my life. Honestly,
uh-huh. Nice.
it's a project that kind of weaves together my kind of love of musical education and children, and kind of
Mm,
teaching them that notes are theirs to play with from the beginning, instead of what we tend to do, which is to tell
mm,
them to learn from the masters, and then maybe eventually they'll deserve to put notes together on their own. And
mm,
also, it's a project where it's is going to be based on investigating with every chorus I work with, investigating an animal on the endangered species list,
oh,
and
wow.
local to them, and working with their community and with their local indigenous community and with the local scientist community to help them do their own research on whatever animal they choose, and I'll choose with them.
Mm,
The project will be called Long for This World, and then once we do that, I'll work with them to kind of to write a song based on their animal, and eventually, hopefully, I have like 50 of them all around the world. But I'm launching it actually locally in my own hometown this year. What else? Working with my band Rabbit Radio. We still release a song on the first of every month through Bandcamp. You can find us on Bandcamp, Rabbit Radio.
mm,
And we just released an album and are working on our next one. And I'm currently writing a song cycle for a cappella group in Philadelphia called Variant 6, which
mm,
is a kind of based on each of their experience with deep quarantine and their
mm,
experience with this kind of
mm.
pulling back of our lives. So we've got a lot going on.
Well, yeah, sounds
It's
like a
really fun.
really fruitful time. Yeah. Well, best of luck with all of that. And I know we'll look forward to hearing about it along the way. So
Wonderful.
thanks again for being part of this. It was really great to have you. And I hope the folks who are hearing this will tune in on Saturday.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's
Yeah.
really it's been I feel lucky you guys asked me, and it
Yeah.
sparked a whole bunch of creative energy. So I'm grateful.
Love it. All right. Thank you so much. Take
You're
care.
welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.